This season of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Christine Hartman, a real estate broker with @Properties, Christie's International Real Estate, one of Chicagoland's most trusted brokers, helping you buy, sell, and invest in real estate. For more information and to see how much your home is worth, text HOME to 630-797-8421 or go to christinehartman.com or click the link in the show notes. This episode of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Bulldog Plumbing Incorporated. For more information or to schedule an appointment, visit their website in the show notes or give them a call at 630-313-9109. Hey everybody, you're listening to Area Code Batavia, a podcast about what it means to belong in Batavia. I'm your host, Richard Clark. You're having a good winter, Christmas season, year-end season. Sam, I was thinking on the way up here, I was going to say you're our first return guest. That is not true, I realized. Do you know who our first return guest was?
I don't.
It's Jamie Sam.
Oh, so, she was on recently, wasn't she?
Yeah, she also happens to be a sponsor. I'm just going to throw that out there as a disclosure. But I also really like having her on. So she was our first guest. She talked about the gift ideas, gift guide episode, but you're our second return guest.
Both Sam, so it works out.
Oh yes, Jamie, Sam Kraft. So Sam, you are here to talk about the year in review in Batavia. It still feels like 2023, but here we are at the end of 2024. And I really wanted to do this episode where we sort of recap what has happened in Batavia in 2024, particularly because I think it's easy to lose sight of all of the things that have happened in the year. So we made a list of what we see as the most substantial stories in Batavia, or at least the stories we want to talk about on a podcast in Batavia.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first full year running the Tri-City Central newsletter, and what I did in preparation was go through and I didn't look at every single one because that would have been a little cumbersome, but I looked at most of them and kind of picked up on some themes that jogged some memories around what people interacted with the most or what gave me the most feedback. And I think people will be interested in some of the things that we're going to cover today.
Have you done 104 newsletters at this point in the year?
I don't know that I can perform that kind of math right now, but
but it's 2 a week, right?
Yeah. So we're probably getting close to that since there's only a week and change left in the year.
Yeah, awesome. I think right off the bat, I felt like this was the story that caught the most attention. It was also the story I heard from people outside of Batavia the most. So talk about that.
Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons that jumped out at me as well, is because it was, I think it ran on CNN, which you don't see. You don't see Batavia get covered on CNN very often. So the skull was originally found in 1978.
The skull.
When
Great Batavia skull, of 2024.
Someone was renovating their home. Can you imagine,
just finding a skull,
demoing a wall in your bathroom and a skull pops out?
No.
I'm going to call my real estate agent and get out of here.
Yeah.
But that person did the right thing, and they brought the skull to the police. It was 1978, so I don't think DNA technology was quite where it's at today. So eventually the case went cold after they investigated it. And then the reason it became relevant again in 2024 is some employees at the Depot Museum were cleaning the museum somewhere in storage and happened upon the skull again.
Oh, my gosh.
And I think we're probably as surprised as the original finders of the skulls. They did the same thing, brought it to the police. They renewed the investigation, and Kane County officials actually brought in a DNA technology firm to do DNA things. Like, I can't really speak in an educated fashion to that, but
they CSI'd it.
They CSI'd it, and were actually able to identify the person that the skull belonged to. It was a woman named Esther Granger, who was born in 1848 in Indiana.
And how did she end up with her skull in a wall?
That part, no one really seems to know. The working theory, as I understand it, is that the rest of her remains were buried in Merrillville, Indiana, I believe. And the theory is that it was grave robbers who got into the remains. And apparently it was 150 years ago, it was somewhat in vogue to rob graves and then sell the cadavers to the authorities for medical study. So
It was a thing people did.
that's what I think the number one working theory was, at least last time I looked into it. So
Yeah.
pretty wild one.
I think the first impulse when you hear about a skull on a wall is like serial killer. That and there's probably more there. There's more to the story, and it's scary. So that was in some ways a happy ending, it feels like.
Yeah, I believe the family was brought in and they got closure and whatnot. So all in all, it seems to. I mean, there's still some mystery there. So who knows? Maybe something will pop up again in 38 years. And
there's definitely tragedy involved. It's just hard to say what it is. Yeah. Interesting. Well, there was also a road diet. That was big news.
Good transition.
Yeah. Thank you. Look, there are going to be 9 transitions, and they can't all be bangers.
So the road diet was the reconstruction of portions of Route 31 between North Aurora and I want to say Fabian Parkway in Batavia to narrow it from 4 lanes, 2 going each way, to 3 lanes with center turn lanes in the middle through large portions of it. It wasn't the entire stretch of 31 going through Batavia, but a large portion of it. And this was done partially as a result of the 2 serious bicyclist and pedestrian accidents that I believe happened in 2023. I think it was the impetus behind doing something about it. And I've driven through several times now, and I honestly can't say I have any complaints. And I know that there was some concern that it would create congestion and whatnot, but it does seem to have helped a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Anytime you make a change like this, you can easily see the downsides because the upsides that were there aren't there anymore. But I do think, like, one of the things I was most heartened by was how quickly it came after what happened in 2023. It was the kind of thing where that was a situation where you ask, what can I do? Do we need to go out and like do something? And I was heartened to see that a lot of people had already mobilized around this issue, and B, that was taken to heart and they were actually doing something about it so quickly. That made me happy. And yeah, I mean, the center turn lanes are somewhat counterintuitive for some people. For me, they're not. They're pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I mean, it seems fine to me.
I agree. It is refreshing when an infrastructure project doesn't get bogged down in years of bureaucracy.
Yes,
they just knocked it out.
To me, that's the story. Right? That's the story. In 2024 of this road diet it happened. After a lot of uproar around these accidents, they started literally putting boots on the ground to make it exist.
And it was definitely in certain locations, something needed to be done. I mean, if you think about kids walking, I grew up a quarry rat. I was at the quarry 6 days a week throughout the summer. That was the exact route I would take down Morton Street, cross 31, walk through that little path in the cemetery there, and go down to the quarry. I'm sure kids still take that path throughout the summer now. So being able to get that shored up and hopefully in a safer place, I think will be huge.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about the mayor and his campaign for re-election. So this is number 3 on our list. And I think the noteworthy thing here is someone is challenging him. And do you know, like, the last time this has happened? Because I do not.
Mayor Schelke was first elected in 1981.
Okay.
So
yes, which is 1 year before I was born. He was already mayor before I was born.
7 years before I was born. And I honestly don't know if, I'm sure he has been challenged at some point in his initial 11 terms.
I mean, odds are,
I don't recall who and when.
So he's being challenged. The thing that's of interest to me about this, just on a personal level, is I am excited to interview both of the candidates and put those interviews on the podcast. I've already interviewed Tom Connolly, who is running against him, and that was a really good conversation. And Mayor Schelke's already agreed to talk to me, and so we'll be talking to them on the podcast. People can look forward to that in the new year.
I think it's really cool that you'll be able to have both of them in a conversational setting, so it's not someone reading campaign materials, or I mean, there's nothing wrong with reading a news article, but hearing them in just a genuine conversation with a resident and being able to chat for an hour, I feel like will help folks really get to know each person and what their vision is for the city.
Yeah, and just so people know where I stand, for what it's worth, I'm very torn on the issue. Like, I do think Mayor Schielke's been a great mayor, and I think Tom Connolly has a lot of potential. One thing that I'm trying to accomplish with these conversations is very limited. I'm not trying to get to the bottom of the issues. I'm not trying to have them have opportunities to answer political questions. I'm just trying to get to know them as people in the same way that I do almost anyone I interview. So you pair that with what really can be read in a list or a news article. I think that can help people make their own decisions about that question.
Yeah, I think that kind of gives them the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You probably don't have to look very hard to find information about Mayor Schielke. He's in a tie for the longest serving mayor of a town in Illinois, and I think the 11th longest serving mayor in the entire country. So, I'm sure there's a lot there. And one thing I think I don't know if worry is the right term, but when someone's been in charge for 4 decades, when that person does step down, there's a loss of institutional knowledge.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Is it?
Yes.
I mean, who knows how much of what goes on at City Hall and throughout the town with various initiatives is just kind of up here in his head versus on paper.
Yeah.
So you'd hope that some of the other elected officials in town have been learning from him over the years, and that transition wouldn't be too difficult if he is to not win the election and a transition happens.
February 27th. Does anyone remember what happened that day? I didn't realize it was February 27th, but I do remember the tornado scare of 2024. We were in Sturdy Shelter of all places, so that worked out well. If you want to be anywhere during a tornado, it's a place called Sturdy Shelter, and it does feel very sturdy. We heard the tornado sirens go off, and our entire family was like about to leave. We were putting on our jackets, and those sirens went off, and we were like, we're not leaving anytime soon. So we hunkered down and withstood. There were no tornadoes hit near us, but
I mean, I love this topic, number one, just as I'm a massive weather nerd.
Really?
Anyone who reads my newsletter closely, I don't know how many people actually read it word for word ever, but I get the most excited about weather-related topics.
I feel like you could think that about your opinions on I could peg you as a real estate nerd. I could peg you as a weather nerd. Like, there are a number of things you drill down on, but weather is the one you really enjoy drilling down on.
My favorite course I took throughout college, and I was a journalism major in college, but severe and hazardous weather, hands down. Last course I took.
Do you get excited when there's severe weather? Be honest.
Not necessarily excited, but there's definitely a level of intrigue there. And that night was pretty crazy. You looked outside and it looked like the movie Twister. The sky did not look normal.
Right.
I live in Geneva, and earlier that day it was 73 degrees. I took a bike ride in my T-shirt along the Fox River Trail earlier in the day. And, when everything bore down and we hunkered down in the basement, our neighborhood was spared for the most part, but Caneville Road, which runs from Randall to Route 38, which is somewhat near where we live, just got demolished. I think what is it? That was 10 months ago. Some of the fences and whatnot still haven't been fully repaired. So, since I've been back living in the suburbs in this area, it's probably the worst damage I've seen.
Yeah, I will remember this year as the year that my tree kept dropping giant limbs on me and my neighbor's property. And that was such a nightmare because the worst part was just the awkward conversations you have to have here with your neighbor afterwards.
Your tree ruined my...
Exactly. Yeah. Took out my power, took out my gutter, those kinds of things. And so this was a weird weather year in general, I felt like. And I remember that if I remember correctly, it was like a whole week of tornadoes almost.
I think there might have been another scare that week.
Okay,
That was the big tornado day, I know. So there was damage near Main Street in Randall in Batavia. I believe a trailer got flipped over or something like that.
Interesting.
I mentioned the damage in Geneva. The Pepper Valley subdivision lost 30 or 40 mature trees. Wheeler Park, actually, down by Route 31 in Geneva. I mean, they lost some serious, really cool old trees, which is a big bummer.
Yeah.
And if I recall, I think 11 tornadoes touched down in the general like suburban Chicago region that night.
Well, okay, as a weather nerd, what causes 11 tornadoes to just show up?
I think 73 degrees in February with the massive pressure differences between high and low pressure, and I think the temperatures have something to do with that.
Okay.
Someone is just gonna fact check the heck out of what I'm saying right now.
A real weather person.
But pressure, there's something to do with the pressure.
Yeah. And now it's time for another installment of Settling In with Christine Hartman. On each installment of Settling In, we'll spend a couple of minutes diving deeper into what it means to make Batavia home, with insights and advice from our title sponsor, local real estate expert Christine Hartman of App Properties Christie's International Real Estate. This is our last installment of Settling In, and this time I wanted to talk to Christine about what people do when they decide they want to stay in Batavia for the long haul, and why so many people choose to settle in. When you see a family decide, we're going to be here for a long time.
Yeah.
What changes?
I think that people who are here for the long haul tend to make an effort to be more a part of their community because they realize that this is going to be home and not just a house. This is going to be home for them. This is going to be the community in which they live. Their kids are going to go to school, and if they have children, they're going to be working here. I think there is a motivation to feel connected, and I think those people really make an effort to be a part of their community.
How do they do that?
I think first of all, it's just getting in, like physically getting out into the community, attending events, going to the farmer's market, meeting and getting to know small business. It's kind of like the Friends Cafe, where everybody, or is it Cheers, where everybody knows your name?
Cheers.
Yeah. Okay. I do think that Batavia does a good job of making people feel like that they're known and seen.
What does it look like to be content with Batavia?
That is a very deep question, my friend. Contentment is a very difficult thing, I think, for our culture in general, but then to have contentment in your home and community. I think we are doing generally a good job of this because the real estate market is so challenging. We are forced into contentment because before it would have been easy to bump up and buy the next house for our family to grow into. And now because market forces are working against buyers in a lot of ways, at least currently, they are forced to be content with what they have. And I actually really love that. I have talked to a ton of people about real estate, and some of the best advice that I have gotten from people who own like huge houses, and I'm talking like 4,000-5,000 square feet, is they aren't always happy with that choice because then their house and their people within their house get pulled into the different rooms and areas and they feel less connected. And I have heard from many people saying, I wish I had just stayed with our starter home because then we would have been together more often.
Interesting. That's a weird note for a real estate person to end this interview on.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. My best interest is always my client's best interest, and I want people to be genuinely happy in wherever that they are. So if you come to me and you're like, I want to buy a house, but it might not be for 5 years, I need to wait for the right one, then we're gonna wait for the right one. For a buyer, I will never try to sell you a home. When we go look at homes, we're going to look at homes that are right for you. I'm not going to walk you through and be like, look at this amazing kitchen or whatever, you know what I mean? I am there to support you as a friend and as a confidant and someone that has your best interest in heart. I'm not going to push you into anything. Totally different if I'm going to sell your house. I will sell that house. It's a whole different strategy. That's when I go into sales mode. And that's, I have a very strong marketing background. I love everything related to selling a home. But in terms of like pushing people into a purchase or making them feel like they need to transact. I've never been that way. And that is not what I stand for, and that's not who I am as a person. So if you want me to help you buy or sell a home, I would love to, but I will always be looking out for what's best for you.
Christine Hartman is a real estate broker with At Properties Christie's International Real Estate, one of Chicagoland's most trusted brokers, helping you buy, sell, and invest in real estate. For more information and to see how much your home is worth, text HOME to 630-797-8421 or go to christinehartman.com or click the link in the show notes. I wanted to take a quick break to let you know that Area Code Batavia is brought to you by Bulldog Plumbing Incorporated, a family-owned and operated business serving our community for years. It's been pretty cold the last few days. I don't know if you've noticed. Imagine this. You're coming in from a long morning walk. You step into your shower, you turn it on, and the water is cold. It's not good. It's not a situation you want to experience. And so our advice is to go with a tankless water heater from Bulldog Plumbing. They're the local experts who can help keep your family warm and cozy no matter how low the temperature drops. Tankless water heaters provide endless hot water without the wait, plus they save you money and energy. Bulldog Plumbing offers top-notch installation and service, ensuring your home stays comfortable all season long. So for a warm and worry-free winter, click the link in the show notes or give them a call to schedule an appointment at 630-313-9109. Let's talk about the business scene. So we made the decision and this is going to be a problem for like time purposes, but we made the decision to lump all the business scene stuff, the local businesses, into one number 5 entry. So tell us about like what went on. What were the big 2024 developments in the Batavia local business scene?
Well, I'll start with a couple things that are kind of more current just because fresh on my mind from kind of reading and writing about them.
Yeah.
One is that I don't know if people know this. It might have flown a little bit under the radar in the last couple months, but the Comedy Vault in Batavia launched what they call a Laugh Local program.
Yeah.
So anyone who lives in the Tri-Cities, Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles, if they use a special promo code Good Neighbor, they're able to get into any Thursday night non-special event, which is most Thursday nights for free.
Yeah.
And I actually went on and did the checkout and tested it so that I know that it actually works.
It actually works.
And I'm not falsely advertising.
Verified.
But yeah, so I mean, the comedy, I don't know. Have you been to the Comedy Vault?
I've been a couple times, yes, and really enjoyed it. It's a really cool venue. It really is. It's you walk in, it's smaller than you think it's going to be, which in a comedy venue is good. It sort of means intimate. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just like a cool vibe in general.
I agree, and the quality of entertainer that they bring in, I was shocked the first couple of times that I went, just how, not only how good the show is, but how good the operation is.
Yep.
One piece of advice I'll give you and anyone who's listening is that you probably want to get there 10, 15, 20 minutes early.
Yeah. Unless you're seeing a soap opera star, and in that case, you want to line up early in the morning because those lines go around the block. I don't know what's up with that, but people are lining up really early for that guy.
I haven't seen that guy or one of those shows, but I did show up with like a minute to spare for one of the shows, and they put us smack dab in the middle, the front row, 2-person table, my wife and I.
Okay.
And one of the openers just, did his finger and pointed at one person.
Yeah.
It was me, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Asked what I did for a living, and I work in marketing. I didn't want to get into my full-time day job. And the next 10 minutes were him just ripping apart the profession of marketing and me personally. So
this is the thing. Like, this is the worst case scenario of these comedy shows, and I don't know why this keeps happening. It's just like a crazy thing that tends to happen at comedy shows that no one Well, the guy there, the you in that situation does not enjoy that. I guess everyone around you probably enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, there was a lot of laughter. It was fine. I'm sure that my demeanor was relatively cool, but I did want to crawl in a hole.
That's funny. Yeah, it's terrifying, honestly. And I was about to say, like, I would really love to go one of those shows alone, but I think somehow that would just make me an easier target.
Absolutely. Well, if you were in the maybe standing room in the back where there's some more shadows and whatnot, you could probably skate by. But again, get there early.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take us off on a tangent
No,
on
I love that.
the
That's
first
beautiful.
business topic. One thing I also wanted to mention was there is a new pickleball facility that is, I don't know if you've heard of this at all, but opening on Randall Road at some point this month, at least it's expected to.
Okay.
It's called Pickled. I know there's a lot of pickleball fanatics out there these days. This facility is going to have 12 pickleball courts, some sports simulators, which I believe includes golf simulators, a bar, ping pong tables. It's kind of a little billiardy entertainment district.
Yeah.
It is a company that started in Wheaton and I believe is expanding, but it's going to be kind of a membership-based program. I think you pay a small fee every time that you go, and that's by the time this podcast airs, will probably be open. So
And it's called Pickled.
Pickled with an exclamation point.
I guess pickleball is a big deal.
Have you played?
No, I've never played. Played tennis, but
Give it a whirl. It's a little more accessible than tennis.
Do you like it?
It is very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's like if you haven't played it, you think it's the dumbest thing ever. But once you played it, I guess you're in.
Oh, I always when people rip on it, I always challenge them and ask, have you played it? Because it is.
I'm not going to rip on it. I know better than that, but it just doesn't appeal to me right now. But at some point, I mean, a place called Pickled that has a bar and I don't know, just random stuff to do in the winter. I mean, that's pretty valuable in my opinion.
I think it'll do pretty well, especially with kind of golf simulators being all the rage these days too.
Yes.
I think a lot of people will be into it.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, well, I'll run through some of the business openings from the year, and if you want to just kind of give me a reaction. Taco Dale opened up out in Randall Road in Batavia. Have you been?
I have not been.
I have not either, but my parents have, and they enjoyed it.
I think about I should go every time I get stuck at that intersection, and that's about it.
Actually, even thinking about that intersection right now.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started.
No,
I almost talked about it during the road diet, but that's a terrible intersection.
Another one that opened up in downtown Batavia is the new Geneva Winery location.
Yep, I've been there a few times.
Yeah, they got some outdoor seating. Nice along the river there. I haven't been inside.
Okay.
But I've seen photos and it looks pretty fantastic.
It's beautiful. It's a great location.
It's interesting. I don't know if you noticed this. Within the past couple of months, Geneva Winery also acquired a Vintage 53 in St. Charles, which is like a cocktail wine charcuterie spot.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's my understanding that all three of those locations now are going to serve Geneva Winery wine and kind of have that the charcuterie stuff. And I don't know about the cocktail portion of it, but basically one location in each of the Tri-Cities. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Another one, Thorabella's. Downtown Batavia.
Yeah.
Italian restaurant.
Yep.
Another one that I have not been to. I know they have live music on select weekend nights.
Okay.
You know, there's been some turnover at that one over the last 5, 10, 15 years. So hopefully this one turns into a staple for quite a while.
I hope so. I like to say that it's like the defense of the dark arts of the Batavia downtown. If you know, you know. Where it just can't last. But I think, this seems to be doing well. And I hear a lot of good buzz about it. And I do think Batavia needs a fine dining establishment or something close to a fine dining establishment where you can go and have a really nice date. So let's hope it sticks around.
I would agree. And the opposite of fine dining Italian
Let's hear
would be
it.
Dave's Hot Chicken.
Love it. That's my favorite. I need to try that place. I tried it once.
Yeah?
It was awesome.
It kind of blows my mind how many hot fried chicken places can be successful in the modern day.
In Batavia in particular, there are a lot of chicken places. This is an ongoing joke on the various Facebook groups. Man, Batavia does not need another chicken place now, but we needed the hot chicken place.
I mean, that 1 mile stretch of Randall is like Chicken Mecca, USA. So if anyone's feeling hungry, head out to Randall Road, a little bit north of Main Street, and you're all set.
Yeah.
Another kind of fast casual spot, Bulldog's Red Hots, downtown reopened.
Oh, this is big.
I understand that it was closed for a while, which I didn't even realize till I saw that it reopened.
I think it's been through 3 different owners since I've lived in Batavia.
I mean, it used to be a similar establishment when I was a kid. I can't remember what it was. I think it was called Chicago Char House or something like that. I used to go down in when I was a teenager. But yeah, I mean, it was burgers, hot dogs, that kind of thing.
And I think the new owners, it's good. I love it. I mean, I've always loved Bulldog's Red Hots, largely out of loyalty to the concept, frankly. I love a Chicago hot dog. I just love a Chicago hot dog, and I love an unpretentious place in which to buy a Chicago hot dog.
So obligatory question.
Yeah.
Ketchup on your hot dog?
No. I mean, no. In general, no. But definitely not on a Chicago one.
Now everybody knows if you put ketchup on your Chicago hot dog, Richard is not a fan.
I'm not a fan of myself eating it. Let's put it that way. I'm not a judgy person in general, but yeah, I wouldn't do that. And in general, I'm not a ketchup person. So
that's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I went very soon after they opened and absolutely loved it.
Have you been to Lucky Joe's since the old Gammon House rebranded and reopened in August?
Yes, I have. And yeah, it's good. The only complaint I have is there's no tater tots, which was my absolute favorite thing that Gammon House had.
So I know when they initially opened, there was no kitchen. They were having Fernando Street Kitchen come and some other food trucks and things like that. Do they have a full kitchen?
They
now?
had food.
Okay.
They had burgers. They had fries. They did not have tater tots, which absolutely blew my mind. So this is the closest I'll get to a negative opinion on this podcast. But we need tater tots, guys.
Where's the best tater tot in Batavia?
It was Gammon House. I don't know now. I don't know where to go for tater tots at this point. Probably JT's or something. I don't really know.
All right. Next survey that I'm going to be running in the newsletter is best tater tot in the Tri-Cities.
Please do that survey. That would be amazing.
All right. That's about all that I had for openings. I mean, unfortunately, we had a couple closings this year. Most recently, Smarty Pants Cafe on Randall Road, which is a cool spot.
Yeah,
it's a real bummer. That.
And I knew the guy who owned it, and he was very passionate about it and very innovative. And they were doing a lot of interesting things there. And when I read sort of his announcement, I think he had the right read on it, which is it's just a hard location for a coffee shop. It was not a place I walked to often. I could not walk there, and I just wasn't off in that direction very often. I didn't think about it very much.
I mean, once you get inside, you're like, okay, coffee shop vibes.
I loved it.
Really unique coffee shop vibes.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, people associate coffee shops, I think, right or wrong, with kind of a like a unique building, maybe downtown with character, and that's just that wasn't necessarily the facade that they had going on.
Yes. Yeah. So my understanding is he's looking for possible other locations, and I think that's smart. Sounds like Geneva needs a coffee shop. So.
Yeah. From what I've heard, the rent being asked at the old Graham's 318 is prohibitive.
Doesn't have to be there.
But it doesn't have to be there. Yes.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening, Geneva needs another coffee shop.
Yeah.
And another one, I believe it was in March, Bar Evolution.
Okay.
Closed down.
Yeah.
I hadn't been there in a few years, but they were one of the places that appeared weekly on the live music roundup.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people were a big fan of that, so always a shame to see a place like that shut down.
Agree. I went a couple times. I liked it. It was sad.
I think we wanted to touch a little bit on the latest class of the Boardwalk Shop, specifically a couple that have graduated out of the recent cohort. Speaking of Geneva,
yes,
I live near walking distance from Route 38 and Gather Bakery, which correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say they opened within the past calendar year. And they were part of the recent class of the Batavia Boardwalk Shops. It is a great space. It's pastries, breads, coffee, things like that. But they also are kind of getting in on the community event trend and doing, during the holiday season, doing some cookie decorating classes and things like that. And I've seen the owner post to social media a few times that, apologizing for being overwhelmed because business is so good that there's lines and all those things.
Love
but those are good growing pains to have, so it's nice to see them finding some success.
Is it a place you go and hang out in, or is it a place you just go pick stuff up in?
Personally, it's somewhere that I go and pick stuff up. There's not a ton of seating.
So it's not like a New Moon vegan situation.
I wouldn't compare it to that necessarily,
Okay.
no.
Got it.
Good spot nonetheless.
Yeah.
Geneva, again, Neighbors Grid, which was part of the
Yes.
recent class, just had a ribbon cutting within the past month on 3rd Street, and they do 90s vintage clothing, which evidently is all the rage these days. I kind of need to be told about
Right,
clothing
yeah.
trends, not necessarily
say
my
so.
strong suit, but
Yeah. Well, in general, I think the Boardwalk Shops was a big 2024 story for me because they were so varied. And I just thought they were like a really diverse group of people and products. And that made me really happy. Like, it was almost like whiplash going from one store to the next. And yet you could tell they were all sort of part of the same community. And that kind of thing gets me excited. There's an episode about this if you go listen to previous episode where I interview the Boardwalk Shop owners from this year. You can hear all their stories. That got me personally really invested in the Boardwalk Shops this year, and I'm interested to see where they end up.
it's a pretty incredible little model. And
Yes.
I've actually seen, there was another Illinois community. I can't remember what it's called right now, but they are creating a similar thing modeled after the Batavia Boardwalk Shops.
Yeah.
And I also get Google alerts based on some of the things happening. And there's a town down in Texas that is doing exactly what the Batavia Boardwalk Shops did.
Beautiful.
It's actually kind of based on the Batavia version of it.
Wow.
So it's kind of being copied around the country, which I think proves out its model a little bit.
I love that so much. Remember the foam?
How could I forget the foam?
No one can ever forget the foam.
So there's Mahoney Creek on the east side of Batavia. There was a chemical spill at a company on Kirk Road. Firefighting chemicals leaked into the water,
Okay.
got into the creek, was drained down into the Fox River. But somewhere along the way, it just ballooned up into the entire creek was covered in foam. The photos were all over the internet. People were freaking out because they didn't know what it was.
Right.
The city did an investigation. They brought in a group to clean up. I believe the company responsible was required for paying for a lot of that. And, they eventually were able to determine that there were no adverse health effects associated with what happened and whatnot, but it just was a phenomenon for a couple of weeks. It turned into a bit of a saga.
Yeah. I'll mention really quick, there's an organization called Main Street America, and it exists to help with the vibrancy and conservation of American main streets. They have state divisions, right? So there's an Illinois Main Street. And the Illinois Main Street Conference this year took place in Batavia.
Hosted by Batavia Main Street.
Hosted by Batavia Main Street. And it was really, this is one I was excited about. One, that's a really cool honor for Batavia. Because what the Main Street conferences do is they say, come and see, right? Come and see what they've done here and get inspired and that sort of thing. So it tells you off the bat, like Batavia Main Street is doing a good job of sort of keeping the space vibrant and that sort of thing. I got to attend this and I was really excited to do that. And it was just really fun to sort of like experience a conference atmosphere in the local library and the Comedy Vault. You'd walk from the library to the Comedy Vault, and then you go over to Water Street Studios, and there was like an opening meetup at Sturdy Shelter to just like get to hang out in these spaces and talk to people from out of town and get the vibe of how they were feeling about the city, which was very good. You know, people were like really impressed with what Batavia was doing. That was just really encouraging, you know?
Were those events at various places around town? Were they like little breakout sessions? Were they panel discussions? Like, what was the format of that?
Yes, is the answer. There were breakout sessions, panel discussions. The thing at Sturdy Shelter in particular was like a cocktail hour, you know, to open the conference. But everything else was like sitting and listening to people talk and stuff like that.
Were there any themes around some of the observations from the state officials that visited around Batavia and what they learned from it or anything like that?
You know, the biggest theme I thought was really interesting was just like do stuff. And to elaborate on that, it was like almost subversive, like break rules, don't ask permission, ask forgiveness kind of vibe, which is funny because like when you think about how the Main Street organization works, and I don't know, it is not part of the city. It is not part of the legislature, right? It's not part of the government. And so it really has to come up with creative ways to do its own thing to make things happen. It doesn't get to like say, okay, everyone vote on this and like give us money to do it. It just does initiatives.
It's an advocacy organization.
It's an advocacy organization, and it does things like farmers market, like things like this. The Better Block organization did a lecture there, and in fact, if you've seen these random signs around Batavia that just say Batavia, they're like wooden prop-up signs. That was the Better Block organization sort of saying, here are some signs, we're going to build them, and we're going to put them in various spots.
I was going to ask about that because I saw some photos of those. Those look pretty cool. Did you? I read that participants or attendees of the conference helped build those. Did you participate in that?
Yes, and to be clear, we did not like carve them. They were sort of already all set up. It was IKEA style, but easier than IKEA. Like you just sort of put them together like a 3D puzzle, and then you all lift them and carry them places. But it was pretty neat. I mean, the idea is like you can just do things. And we just put them places and left them, and I think only one of them is missing now. The rest seem to be there still.
Well, I think that's really cool to hear about, and I think it's a testament to how far downtown Batavia has come in the last 15, 20. I can't imagine that conference would have come to downtown Batavia 20 years ago, so very cool.
So, Sam, there have been a couple of development projects happening. I think the thing that most people are aware of is like the Clark Island situation. There's a lot of change happening over near Clark Island.
Well, I know that one phase of that project, a new skate park, just opened last week.
Okay.
Last week from when we're recording, so a couple weeks ago from when folks are going to be listening to this. As I understand it, there are a lot of other facets to that project. So there's a fishing outcrop that's being built, an outdoor fitness court, what they're calling a flex fitness area, which...
That exists. That's there.
That's there already.
It's there. It's big and blue, and it's where the playground used to be.
Okay.
My kids are furious.
Why are they furious?
Because the playground is gone, and now it's just a place to exercise. Well, which you can kind of have fun with for a minute. It's like a novelty, but then after a while, you're like, but there's no slide or swing.
Was the playground relocated anywhere, or is that just
there's other playgrounds? I think the reasoning is there's other playgrounds around. You know, there's a lot of close playgrounds. But no is the answer.
Speaking of other playgrounds, 2 new parks did open within the past few months. One of them being at Peter Frieder's Park, which is east of Kirk, kind of bordering the Fermilab property. Huh. And another one called Coventry Hills Park. That's off a Deer Path, west of Randall. So if anyone frequents those areas, worth checking out those new parks. Another big development project that hasn't been in the news recently, but I'm sure most people around town remember hearing about is the Ashton Ridge subdivision that's been approved.
Oh, yes.
So that one is off McKee across from Storm School near Van Nortwick.
It's really hard to miss at this point.
32 acres of land. It used to be the Siemens property.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was owned by Furnace Electric when I was a kid.
Okay.
And what they're doing is turning it into 80-plus townhomes, more than 70 single-family homes. They're all going to be between 1,500 and 3,200 square feet, so some pretty big shacks.
Is that 80 plus 70, or is that 80 including 70?
Total, more than 150.
That's going to be a big deal, I think, for downtown businesses, for all kinds of people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone has their own opinions on growth and whatnot, and be good for the city's finances, you have to imagine. But I know some people were a little concerned about the denseness of the development and then the cost of the housing there. So
I mean, already there's some concerns around there's one house going up right now, and
I've seen it. Yeah,
there's concerns around how close it is to the road, where's the sidewalk going to go, kind of thing. So I could see the denseness being a concern. Well, okay, I didn't warn you about this, but I did want to end by asking, what was a big sort of local personal story for you? On a personal level, what was the big local story that impacted your life the most?
Well, I mean, I really have no stake in the water treatment plant per se, but it affected the bike path, which I use 3 to 4 times a week, especially in the summer. My favorite route is heading down to the North Aurora Dam from my house in Geneva, doing one side on the east side, one side on the west side, coming back, not being able to. I was still able to do the trip, but that portion of the trail in Batavia was under construction, and there was a detour. You had to go up to 31 and go around, go back downtown. So I would say that affected me personally. I can't really complain. It wasn't that big of a deal. I still went on my bike rides, but it's going to be...
I went on a couple bike rides that was dependent on that trail, and it was annoying. It was substantially annoying to me to the point where it was a huge impact, Sam, and I support your being furious about it.
You are putting words in my mouth, but I appreciate...
I think you're right to be angry.
I appreciate the sentiment.
Ours was the closing of 7-Eleven down the street from our house. So there's this shopping center.
Prairie and Wilson?
Yes, Prairie and Wilson. That 7-Eleven went away. It was a big deal in 2 ways. One, they really discounted all of their stuff for a long period of time, and we got so much junk food for such a long time, and we just kept going back and spending more money on junk we didn't need, and it was awesome. But now it's gone, and that sucks. That made us really sad because 7-Eleven was a great place to just stop in and buy a treat or a slushie or whatever, and it's not there anymore. And another thing my kids are furious about.
Well, I guess the silver lining is you all are living a healthier lifestyle now without all the junk food, right?
We get it at Berkeley's now.
Okay.
Which, again, is great. Like, come on, that's a better outcome when you really think about it.
Yeah, that was a White Hen when I was a kid. Do you remember White Hen?
No.
Oh, so yeah, you're not a Midwest guy.
No, I came here like 6 years ago.
So White Hen was basically like the independent. It was a local, or regional chain. Okay. It was basically a 7-Eleven.
Interesting.
Before 7-Eleven kind of came in and took over all those.
Do they exist anymore?
No, I haven't seen a White Hen in probably 10 to 15 years, but they were pretty ubiquitous back in the 90s.
When I was in Wheaton, I used to go to the 7-Eleven in Wheaton a lot, and I became a 7-Eleven like guy. I was like obsessed because 7-Eleven is more than just a convenience store. It's a lifestyle, and I really loved 7-Eleven. I was so excited to have one down the street from our house. So it was really sad. It's like the end of an era. I'm no longer a 7-Eleven guy. I'm just a guy that goes to Berkeley's, which is fine.
You would have been a White Hen aficionado, I think.
You're probably right.
Google it. You'll find people on Reddit waxing poetic about White Hen and White Hen.
I love it. I love a good thing you can wax poetic about that you probably shouldn't. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's my favorite.
It's a perfect example.
That's good. The Waffle House is another one. That's mine. Cool. Well, Sam, thanks for joining us. This has been really fun.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we can pick this back up in the new year.
Thanks for listening to Area Code Batavia. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. If you enjoy this podcast, why not subscribe to our newsletter? Just click the link in the show notes and put in your email address. Not only will we let you know whenever there's a new episode of Area Code Batavia available, but each issue also brings you 5 concrete ways to experience a deeper sense of belonging in the community of Batavia, Illinois. Most importantly, if you know someone who would love to hear this podcast, please share it with them. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community and help more people feel like they belong in Batavia, Illinois. Area Code Batavia is produced by Area Code Audio. It's hosted and produced by me, Richard Clark, with additional production help from Jennifer Clark.